The sun barely appeared because of the green peaks, and the radiance of the warmth of its rays with the dying coolness of the night brought a feeling of sweet languor to the newly awakened residents of Fjord. Someone happily jumped up from the bed and, opening the window, smiled at the upcoming day, making plans for it. Someone, on the contrary, wrapped himself in a blanket, setting down more comfortable in an alluring crib, and continued to nap further. But in the house of Gajeel and Levy, the morning began not like everyone else, but with another scandal. "Why don't you want to take me with you on the mission?" Walking on the heels of the guy in the same robe, McGarden asked. "Because," just answered Gajeel, collecting the necessary things for the mission in her backpack. Flasks with water and other liquid, a handful of nails. No one knows when the dragon will be starving. Scrolls, fresh clothes, and a map. "It feels like you're just running away from me," Levy said, stomping with her miniature leg. From such a statement, Gajeel stopped, threw his backpack on the floor and, turning to the small one, sharply pressed it against the wall. "What did you yell, Maluzga?" The guy growled with one hand, putting both of the girl's wrists in a vice and the other grabbing her by the chin. "What did you hear?" Inflating pink lips, Levy tried to escape, but all the attempts turned out to be a complete collapse for the girl. "Repeat, quickly," Red Fox barked. "Tired, you say?" "Yes, what else should I think? This is the third time you've gone on assignments without me. And for long tasks." Suddenly tears came to the girl's eyes, and stuttering she said, You have another one, didn't you?" Gajeel, from such a statement, only squeezed his jaw that his teeth crunched, and looked into the girl's eyes filled with tears. He didn't even think it would end like this. Red Fox was just afraid for the life of his beloved, not because he wanted to avoid it. Suddenly something happens and he doesn't have time to come to the rescue, and she will be gone. After all, losing your soulmate is the biggest grief for any person. "You're completely fooling around," Gajeel sneered. "What's the other one?" "Then why don't you take me on assignments?" Levy shouted desperately at Red Fox. "And you're afraid I'll see her, right?" A sarcastic smile has already been reflected on my face. "If you don't shut up, then Gajeel was angry. The skin began to be covered with iron scales, and the eyes were filled with rage. The second dark essence of the steel dragon killer, who didn't wake up for a very long time, began to remind herself. "What?" Levy has already started to get hysterical. "Will you go to another?" "Pfft, there's a tablecloth track. I didn't sit on you. Go at least on all four sides." "Okay?" "Of course," she lied. "It's just that all this went so far that I didn't have the strength to stop and say sorry. I wanted to hurt. I wanted to humiliate, trample, rub in the mud. But I can't apologize. And stupid pride interfered with all this. Small rubbish." Gajeel grabbed the girl by the shoulders and began to shake. "Stop talking nonsense. Don't touch me." Levy tried to escape again, and in a fit of anger hit Red Fox on the cheek. In an instant there was silence in the room. McGarden, staring her eyes, looked at the red imprint on the guy's skin. Letting go of the little one, Gajeel rubbed his cheek with his hand. The veins on the guy's face appeared again, informing that the steel dragon killer was angry again, and very much. It was the last straw for the dark entity. She was already sitting with an animal grin and waiting for the fast command. "You'd better run, Malouge, not to stand and stare at me," Gajeel growled. "Run," I said. "No, I'm sorry." Levi began and quickly hugged the guy by the waist, pressing his whole body against his muscular chest. Forgive me. Lifting up on tiptoe, the girl kissed the steel dragon killer on the cheek. Fool. Hugging the girl in response, whispered Gajeel, said, Run. Feeling the touch of warm lips, Red Fox could no longer hold back and gave the command to his beast inside. Now in front of Levi stood not the former Gajeel, now it was a wild animal, scarlet eyes and steel scales on the skin. This Red Fox had instincts in the first place, and feelings in the last, and Levi voluntarily became a victim of this dangerous beast. A sharp movement, and the girl is again pressed against the wall by the guy's strong body. A passionate kiss on such alluring lips, which said a lot of nasty things, and hard touches to Levi's waist in the morning. Gajeel was led by rage for the words said, for distrust, and he planned to teach his girlfriend, albeit in such a tough way. Having bitten the lower lip to the pain and pulling it away, Red Fox lifted the girl by the hips. Now in front of his eyes, blurred by rage, there was a neck and McGardens. Collarbone. Levi wrapped her legs around the guy's waist and bent in her back, allowing him to bite her skin. Breaking away from his neck for a second, Gajeel opened his robe and squeezed the girl's chest with one hand. Levi closed her eyes with light pain and clung to the dark mane of Red Fox's hair. After roaring and planting the girl higher, the guy began to bite McGarden's breasts and lick the hardened nipples. Ah! The blue-haired moaned, trying to take off the t-shirt from the guy. Having helped in this matter, Gajeel let Levy go to the floor and sat on his knees in front of her. With his forehead in her stomach, the guy began to breathe heavily. Levy, I'm sorry, I can't stop. I can't put this beast on the chain again, Gajeel said quietly. It's okay. Don't hold yourself back, Levi said with a light smile. After lightly shrinking his hair, she pulled it away so that their eyes met. Brown eyes, filled with love and tenderness, and red rage and no tenderness. Only cruelty was now characteristic of Gajeel. Also on her knees, McGarden kissed Red Fox, gently running her tongue over his lip. You agreed, little one. No one pulled you by the tongue, Gajeel said with a grin, breaking the kiss. Throwing the girl on his shoulder, he carried her into the room. Red Fox understood that there would be no tenderness now. There would be only mad passion and cruelty. He will apologize for it, but tomorrow. Sharply throwing Levi on the bed, so the girl yucked, Gajeel threw off his angles and sat on the girl's hips. Grabbing McGarden's wrists with one hand, the guy squeezed them over the girl's head. It's your punishment. You won't be able to touch me, Maluzga. But I can, Gajeel said gloatingly, running his fingertips over the alluring roundness of her body. Stopping on his chest, Red Fox, leaning over and biting his nipple, pulled it back. Levi protesters moaned and bent her body. Gajeel, growling discontentedly, completely absorbed his chest into his mouth and looked at the moaning girl. While he was biting and sucking, his left hand sank to the panties, and, pushing them aside, the guy touched the girl's wet crotch with his fingers. Gently inserting his finger, Red Fox began to move it, bringing the girl pleasure. Yes, you're already all wet and ready, the guy stretched out, breaking away from his chest and touching the girl's ear with his lips. Gajeel! Stop it, Levi said through her moans. After spending wet, with his tongue in the ear, Red Fox lightly, over and biting his nipple, pulled it back. Levi protesters moaned and bent her body. Gajeel, growling discontentedly, completely absorbed his chest into his mouth and looked at the moaning girl. While he was biting and sucking, his left hand sank to the panties, and pushing them aside, the guy touched the girl's wet crotch with his fingers. Gently inserting his finger, Red Fox began to move it, bringing the girl pleasure. "Yes, you're already all wet and ready." The guy stretched out, breaking away from his chest and touching the girl's ear with his lips. Gajeel, stop it," Levi said through her moans. After spending wet, with his tongue in the ear, Red Fox lightly blew on the wet path. With pleasure, Levi clung to the blanket with her fingers. No longer feeling Gajeel's finger inside her, Magarden almost cried. "Tss, my girl." A kiss on the lips, a passionate plexus of tongues, and finally a hard bite on the lower lip. When he got out of bed, Red Fox took off his remaining clothes and now completely lay down on the girl. Looking into Levi's eyes, Gajeel smirked. After licking the tear that had just slipped down, Red Fox let go of the girl's hands. The wrist turned red and whined a lot. But despite this, Magarden grabbed the guy's shoulders and put her face in her neck. Pulling his panties to the side, Gajeel abruptly entered Levi and slowly began to move. The girl opened her eyes and bit her previously badly bitten lower lip. A stream of blood rolled down the chin, and, smelling the red liquid, Gajeel looked at the girl. Without letting the path roll further, Red Fox licked it off his chin. "God," Gajeel began, speeding up the rhythm. "How delicious you are." Blushing from such words, Levi wrapped her legs around the guy's waist and began to move at the same pace with him. Leaning on his elbows, Gajeel began to kiss the small one, biting his lower lip and licking the accumulated blood each time. Going down below, Red Fox bit the often beating vein and began to leave half bites on the girl's collarbone and shoulders. Suddenly, Levi threw up her head and, clinging to the guy's back with her claws, leaving scratches, came. Having moved abruptly a couple more times, Red Fox poured into the girl. The hands weakened, and the guy completely lay down on the girl, under him, and slowly falling asleep. Levi winced, but after removing the wet, dark strand from the guy's forehead, she closed her eyes. The next morning it rained in Fiora. Gajeel winced and, opening his eyes, began to restore the chronology of yesterday's events. The fees for the task, the quarrel with the small one, the released beast, and the last memory of how Levi carefully cleaned the strand. Sharply sating on the bed, Red Fox looked at the girl who was calmly snooking, curled up in a ball. After removing a strand of blue hair from the girl's lips, he saw that the lower lip was covered with abrasions from bites. Damn. Gajeel stretched out, closed his eyes and clinging his head with his hands. The whole night flew by before his eyes. With one hand, he pulled off the blanket from the small one and saw red sucks on his shoulder and collarbone. From the cold, Leaves shived and opened her eyes. Seeing the gloomy Red Fox, Magarden immediately jumped up and, covered with a blanket, hugged Gajeel. "Levi, I'm sorry, I'm such a monster." The steel dragon killer stretched out in a lifeless voice. "No, you hear? It's not like that. You are the kindest." Clasping the guy's face with her hands, Levi began to cover him with light kisses. Strong, brave. I love you for who you are. Even the monster inside you that you hate so much. Stupid, stupid little one. Hugging the girl, Gajeel stuck in his girlfriend's blue hair. "And I even liked your rudeness," said the girl, who blushed like cancer in a quiet voice. "Yes. Well, then, maybe we'll continue." Gajeel smirking, putting the girl on the bed and hanging over her from above. Magarden's laughter spread around the room, who drowned in a kiss. And the wind drove away the rain clouds, and the sun began to appear over Fia again.